We're back.
We are back.
Did you miss us?
I missed you.
Yeah. I was left here alone with all the cheers.
And all the people that have been following us today and yesterday with all this live streaming from RSA conference, and we're actually, now they figured out that we are not physically there, but we have been interacting with what's going on, and many friends, old and many new friends like yourself, and we're excited. We're excited to have this one more conversation about what's going on at the RSA conference.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you, Beatriss, and it looks like you've become part of the union in San Francisco, helping with moving the chairs around the conference.
This is what we are advertising on RSA nowadays.
Is that your
on
booth?
the industry? Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Here's
what's left of it.
Hello, guys.
And here's that.
Hey, we just went live. We figure once you show up, you're already in the stream.
That's right.
So
it's hard.
Yeah,
hard to move around.
I found a quiet room and then they kicked me out, so I had to find another room until they kicked me out again.
Okay.
That never changes. The innovation to find a quiet spot at a conference. That's always it's always fun. Well, Erez, it's great to see you again. I know we've chatted before in the context of the AppSec Village, and so perhaps we'll touch a little bit on that. And it's wonderful to meet you, Beatriss, and we're excited to, probably in the next week or so, we're going to have a full conversation with you and your team to learn more about Checkmarx and what's going on and how things are going with your business and what you're up to. Today, it's about your engagement at RSA conference, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what conversations you're having. So maybe, I don't know, what do we start there? What are the chairs saying, Beatriss? The chairs and the blankets.
Yeah. With the chairs. Well, I can share you my feeling. Well, definitely super exciting, to be here, and see the people face to face and partners. There was a super exciting to see the changes that happened, to the domain. I think the RSA is representing it very well. So you see less of network security and endpoint solutions, and more API security, AppSec, supply chain, the new buzzwords. A lot of new players, new startups, which is super exciting, because it just shows, how wide our domain, and we are constantly innovating.
Yeah, and you mentioned that supply chain has been a topic that's come up in pretty much every conversation we've had this week, and clearly a big driver there is APIs, right? You can talk about, well, this vendor does something for me, but nowadays that's probably done through an API, right? That service. Maybe Erez, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
What is the industry making that connection? That supply chain is driven by APIs?
I think there are two main building blocks that are taking us to this era of software supply chain. One of them you mentioned is API. I think the bigger one, and this is what keeps a lot of CISOs up at night, is things that they cannot control at all. And these things are around open source, third-party packages that anonymous, generous, maybe people are working on and contributing. But I give example all the time. People asking me, what's the difference between traditional supply chain and software supply chain? Traditional supply chain, we can imagine a car factory. You have an assembly line. You're in charge of the car factory, so you get your windows from one factory, your tires from another factory, maybe even a different country, and the assembly lines move until it gets to the user, to the customer. But there is heavy compliance. You know exactly what everything is coming from. Now imagine that when you're managing this factory, you go in the street and then someone random comes to you and tells you, "Oh, I created this new braking system. Why don't you use it in your car?" And then you say, wait, is that safe? Is that okay? And he tells you, yes, of course, it has 1,000 stars. And you say, oh, okay, then give it to me. So it sounds ridiculous, but this is how software supply chain looks like now. If someone goes into your organization and try to put a USB key in your system, you'll have them arrested. But if he puts the same code on GitHub, then that's fine.
Yeah, and I was going to say that your story was plausible right up until the point where you said if they ask you if you want the new break.
Exactly.
No, you don't get asked. You just here's the update. And Beatriss, you mentioned working with or having conversations with customers and partners. What are some of your partners saying about this?
Well, first of all, I can tell that we see that there are much more awareness of the various, I wouldn't say buzzwords, but new technologies in the area of application security, and also, well, both our partners and customers, they're not only into the traditional static code analysis, RSA solutions, but they're really interested. It's great, to see that the demand is similar to the trends that we see on the market. And we're definitely having a lot of questions around our supply chain offering, around the Checkmarx Fusion that was recently launched, and what all the upcoming exciting new capabilities is going to join to the to Checkmarx platform, to the Checkmarx One platform.
Nice. And Erez, you mentioned supply chain. Obviously, we're talking about supply chain here. We noticed and heard that there was a lot of public sector presence. And obviously, the public sector folks put some emphasis on software bill of materials, SBOMs. Do you have any insight into that involvement in this year's conference? Do you see an increase there? Do you see the conversations being positive? Tell me a bit about that.
Definitely. So we see several verticals that are way more involved in that. We see a lot of public, government, army, places that are used to have a lot of control over their lines of code, let's say. But suddenly they have much more pressure to actually start and use open source and things like that. There's no question anymore if we can or we should use open source. We're using open source. This train has left the station a long time ago. Open source makes everything way more scalable, faster to deliver, and it's important. But the control that the CISOs have around, let's have a two-factor authentication, let's have a good AV solution, let's make sure that our Artifactory is secured. You have all that control until you get to this area of the software supply chain, which is accepting code from strangers. And as I said in the beginning, they are literally missing sleep at night because of that, and they're looking for solutions. And since there is no way the solution is, well, don't use open source, this is just not feasible. This is not working. Many companies, they're 90%, over 90% of their lines of code are actually open source. This is a huge number. 90% of your code base is open source and was not written in-house. And they are looking for that
wild,
control.
Erez.
Yeah, and that's not Checkmarx saying. This is, these are the researchers and the stats we see. And when you try to combine it with all the other building blocks of static code analysis and API security, and suddenly we have infrastructure as code, which, that kind of verticals that I mentioned, they used to have these big servers in the basement where the temperature is low. Suddenly things are becoming a cloud thing. Suddenly, instead of installing another server, you just deploy another line in your infrastructure as code files. So each and every one of these building blocks, even if it's being scanned and it's okay, you still have the areas that they touch and they talk with each other. And this is where the context lies. And basically in Checkmarx, what we're trying to do is to make sure that our platform covers all that in a holistic approach. And then we can see all the moving parts together in one place and are able to understand what is going where and why. A lot of why.
Talking about the why, I'm curious from the perspective, and then I know that this is just a teaser for a much in-depth conversation that we will have. How do you have this conversation with your potential customer? Are they there? Meaning, are they understanding that they shouldn't get the brakes in the street, even if it had like 10 stars? Or are you still working into educating and that education being a big part of what you do as a company? Beatrice.
I can answer on that because
Yes,
recently I'm advocating a lot, the platform, for our existing customers and new customers, and actually the story is easy to be told, because what the platform is coming to solve is the challenges that our customers has now with a variety, a huge variety of vulnerabilities coming, from all the different areas, all the different scanners that they are using and integrating. So, and this is something that comes, from our partners, from our customers. They are struggling over resources. They have, limited resources of AppSec engineers, of the R&D guys, willing to resolve the issues. They need to have tools, that's going to help them on focusing what is important, what is the most important issues that should be addressed by their organization. And with all this, all this explosion of technologies, which kind of drove the explosion of different solutions in the AppSec domain, they are looking for consolidated solutions today. So when I'm telling this story to a customer, he feels the pain that I'm resolving for him, because this is a pain that people being addressing on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I can give the technical side of what Beatrice said, and I completely echo every single word she mentioned. They understand the pains. We still need to educate them on sometimes on the terminology and the new way, the new mindset that we have. For example, when we talk about supply chain, this is no longer vulnerabilities. This is no longer bugs in the codes. It's not something that someone wrote incorrectly. This is malicious actors acting into our application security, injecting things, for example, or for other things, the combination between different building blocks. They understand that it makes sense, but we need to give them the examples why. For example, if we scan infrastructure as code and we see that we have an open bucket in AWS, a public one, is it okay or not? I don't know. I don't have context. The same thing when I scan your code and I see that you put something sensitive on an S3 bucket. Maybe it's supposed to be like that. But if I give you both of the results together and I'm telling you, listen, you're putting something sensitive on an S3 bucket, and by the way, your infrastructure as code scanner shows that this bucket is also public, you know exactly that there is a problem here. So being able to wrap all that in one platform, basically in this fusion that we're doing, I think this is the new thing that we're bringing. We're taking everything left, like the good old shift left. It's still correct, but we now have way more context because we're looking at the entire functionality of your entire solution.
Yeah, and that visibility, and I think we heard it before coming from the event that organizations are looking for a solution to the problem, not just a part of it. And you mentioned education as well, and I'm wondering, I don't know how involved you are this year, but I believe the AppSec Village is in the sandbox. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Erez?
the AppSec Village was here in the last 3 days. We're actually almost wrapping up. This is another reason I was a bit late.
Tell us about that, because it's about getting hands-on, right? Different libraries.
It's definitely trying to bring DEF CON and hacker activities and hands-on activities a little bit more to RSA. And as one of the co-founders and co-leaders of the AppSec Village, we're having Checkmarx support us for several years, but other supporters as well. And what we try to do is to reach the developers, the application security practitioners, security people in general. And we even try to get to the people who did not write their first bug yet. So we're aiming as early as possible. It was really nice to see that RSA also have some very technical people that want to come and play and do our CTFs, and we did some mobile hacking activities, just hacking live a mobile application, and code review activities. So again, we're trying to teach and to educate through the eyes of the attacker, basically, because we believe that you really need to understand the motivation and what it means to do an attack, and basically what might happen. And we believe you need to learn through your hands also.
Yeah. And the other thing I was going to say, when you were describing what Checkmarx provides, it's kind of telling the story, right, to the people who need to know that story, so they know, okay, here's the journey I'm on as a developer, as a security ops, as a AppSec, as a DevSecOps, whoever it is. And Beatriss, maybe your thoughts on this, kind of the idea of it isn't just security's problem to solve, and it's not an issue with DevOps, right? It's engineering and security and the line of business really understanding that story of here's what we're building, how we're building it, the exposure we have, and here together is how we need to kind of address some of those challenges, put the mitigating controls in place to reduce that risk.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, well, it's a lot around education, and education not only of the AppSec engineers, but definitely developers, management, and all those functions need to understand, the risk that the security vulnerabilities may cause to the organization, even if the organization, not in the software development business. And there is also the maturity and proper planning of the AppSec program, because organizations are not becoming secure overnight. And even if you have the best tools, it takes time until you're onboarding your people, until you're learning, what are the best processes for your organization, where should you integrate all those various products, and definitely it's something that takes time. And this is why in Checkmarx we are believing that it's not only about tools. You need to help your customers building their methodology on how to start the AppSec program, on how to grow their AppSec program, and we are providing the tools, but we definitely also providing them the educational capabilities as well, and for support services, whatever is needed. And you can see it, as that organization that starts small, starting, first, with static code analysis, with open source dependencies analysis, and with the right guidelines. They are growing the adoption of the organization. They are evolving their solutions. They are covering more areas that were uncovered before. So it is happening, just not happening on overnight. And I think that most of our customers are already know about know-how, and this is why of the key benefits of Checkmarx, because it's not only about tools. It's not only about tools, but we actually helping them in grow their apps.
Yeah, and we completely see that education and awareness is a very big part of that. One of the things that we offer in Checkmarx is the code bashing platform. Code bashing is not a scanning engine. It's not a testing tool. It's a platform of empowering the developers, of making sure that the developers understand the things. And sometimes people ask me, so you have a scan for this, an engine to scan this, and an engine to scan this, and then suddenly code bashing, just a learning tool. And then I tell them, this is our biggest engine. This is where we make sure that bugs are not being written in the first place. And this is definitely, and you put your finger directly on that. Education is a very big part. We cannot let only the AppSec people or the security staff of an organization take that on themselves, just because they are always understaffed and it doesn't make sense. You have 1,000 developers, you have 3 security people. You need to scale that, and scaling that means making sure that the developers know what they're doing, they're capable of that, and that they are empowered to do that.
Absolutely. And talking about education, we are having this conversation to get your feedback from this going back finally to RSA conference on the floor, get to introduce Checkmarx to our audience, but we will be having a much longer conversation. I'm going to stop Sean because I know he's going to have another question for you.
Always have another question.
I'm going to have to stop you right here. You're going to have to write it down because we will have a much more proper recorded conversation with you guys coming up really soon. And it was a pleasure having you on this coverage of RSA conference that we've been doing from our home office. Thank you to the technology, but we have been able to share a lot of those of you that actually are back to the show floor. So thank you very, very much. And talk to you soon again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.